I'm going to be 70 on my next birthday in a few months. And I'm really excited to tell you about the things that I've been doing. And also, we're going to be talking about things that cause us to age. So I'm going to do a little screen share here. And I hope you get a lot out of it and you get a deeper understanding of what causes us to age faster and die younger. So she mentioned I'm president and founder of Clear Mind Idaho. That's my bricks and mortar business in Meridian, Idaho. That's right next to Boise, where we help people get their brains right. As she mentioned, I'm going to be talking about how to reverse aging. I love my slide. I need like a deep voice announcer on that one. You know, there's aging, there's getting older in age, and we could lump it all into one, aging, but I'm not going to be talking about aging as far as getting older. That's inevitable. But I want you to look at this slide for a minute. Over on the y-axis right here, we have functional capacity. And down here is time along the x-axis. Up here, we have robustness. Man, I got it going on. I'm healthy. I'm working out. I have lots of energy. And life happens. Something happens. Some kind of severe stress, an illness, an accident, emotional trauma, and it causes to take a little dip right here. And so it's inevitable. Things are going to happen, but it's what happens right down here that determines whether or not we get back up to here. And then we have something else happen, and if we didn't get back up to there, now we're at risk. We're in pre-frailty. Things aren't functioning correctly. If it happens again and we haven't fully recovered, then we go into frailty and dependence. This slide kind of summarizes what I'm going. This one and another slide summarizes what we're going to talk about. So I'm not talking about going from fast aging to slow aging. That is not what my presentation is about. It's about reverse aging. And Dr. Stacy mentioned the book. I want to tell you, everything in my presentation was taken from this book. But I also want to tell you, everything in the book was taken from the research, the global research. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to put it into one reference manual, kind of, so that we understand what the GHK copper peptide and the AHK copper peptide can do. I'm talking today solely about the GHK copper peptide. But first, I'm only going to read one thing from the book, because this is the other slide that, whoops, got to go back here. This is in the book, and it kind of summarizes what I'm going to talk about. I got to change my view on this blocking. There we go. The use of copper peptides can be likened to turning a key and unlocking a realm of possibilities where aging is no longer considered an inevitable decline, but a continuation of life with sustained health and vitality. It suggests a future where aging gracefully isn't just about managing our normal decline, but about thriving well into our golden years and enjoying our maintained state of health and experience. You'll find that on page 275 of the book. So we are going to be talking about the GHK copper peptide. But first, hold on. I have a little wardrobe malfunction. All right. So we're talking about this peptide. And it won't advance. There we go. But first, everyone on this call, I'm sure, has set some goals. You know, we all set goals, but like a goal could be, I'm going to make a sandwich. It's not a very long-term goal, but it's still a goal. And I want to kind of help you look at things a little bit differently as far as what it's going to look like when we get old. You know, we make goals about marriage. How many kids we're going to have? Where are we going to live? We make goals about job, our interests. What am I passionate about? What brings me joy? I've always said to my kids, find out what it is that brings you joy and figure out a way to make a living doing that, because then it's not work. We make goals about, am I going to exercise every day? What's my diet? Am I going to include fast food in that? But have you actually projected out into your older age? Specifically, are my latter years later in life? What are they going to look like? And I want you to really think about that. So I hope that I can kind of spark some new thought about this and about what it looks like. And then take your little imaginary avatar with vision, take it out into the future and plan out what your life is going to be at. Visualize. Hopefully, it includes the GHK copper peptide, especially after what you find out today. So look into the crystal ball, not in a weird, hokey way, but I just want to stoke. I'm not projecting out. I don't want you to project these negative things out onto your future life with your little imaginary avatar, putting it out into your imagination. Look into your future self awaits you, and I want you to design your older years. What will I be like when I'm old in age? I want you to ask yourself that question. Will I remember who I am? Will I be meeting a new person in my house every 15 minutes? Will I be able to travel? Will I be hooked up to machines? Will my joints work without pain? Will I be dependent on someone else for my care? Or will I be independent and able to take care of myself? Will I be a passive observer in my own decline, or will I be an empowered participant? Which do you choose? What are the destructive mechanisms that cause our bodies to age faster? Some people they look old quickly and they die young. What is that? What are those things? Can we do anything about it? Some things are beyond our control, and that is a given, and we can't influence those, but we are going to discover the things we can influence today. Why do we age faster? What are the actual mechanisms that cause some people to age faster and look much older? Here are the top causes of early aging and death. Number one is telomere shortening. What are the telomeres? Here are chromosomes. There's a spot down here on the end of our chromosomes. They're not rounded like this, but this is the diagram so you know where they are. But it's almost as if someone planned, that's sarcasm, that there would be a throwaway part at the end of the gene because we lose a little length. Every time we divide, there's cellular division, and we're making a new cell, we lose a little bit of length. And so what happens, we go from long telomeres to short. And you can call it a telomere or a telomere, depends on where you're from. It's creek or crick. So here are the chromosomes, here they are down at the end, but this is the ending. It has a very specific code that doesn't occur in the rest of the genes, so your body can tell it apart. And we lose a little bit of length off of that each time we have a cellular division. The next most common, let me go back a little bit. So when we age, we lose a little bit of length, and there's a limit because of the loss of the length of that. There's a limit called the Hayflick limit, and that is a specific number of times that a cell can divide, and after that, the entire length of that telomere is gone, and now that cell is going to die. Next topic, next reason we age faster and die younger. Genomic instability. So the genes are damaged. They can't do their job. This is what it looks like. Here's the genes. Radiation can cause genes to be damaged. Chemical exposures like mercury, mold, any kind of toxins. Our genes get exposed to it, and then we have damage to the genes. Some of the bodily processes in our body are toxic. That's why it's called waste. We have to get rid of it through the kidney and the bowel. Any damage like that can cause genes to stop working, and then that cell where those genes are will die. What does the research say about the GHK and how it affects telomeres and our genes? First of all, the GHK copper peptide resets 4,200 of our genes to a younger state. And this has to do with repairing the damage that's been done to them. And our body uses that peptide to repair any of the genes. It protects the genes about that, protects it from that radiation damage, sun damage, radiation, chemicals. And it helps to lengthen the telomeres. Next reason we age faster, mitochondrial dysfunction. These are the powerhouses of the cell. And just to give you an idea, we have about 70 trillion cells, and each cell contains about 2,000 mitochondria. So the majority of our body weight is made of mitochondria. That's how important they are. So what happens? We get mitochondrial dysfunction. We don't make energy very well. Our cells don't have the energy because that's the gas for the cell. If we don't have enough energy, those cells can't do their job, and they can't be the perfect little cell. I'm all happy. I'm doing my job. If I'm a kidney cell, I'm able to function. If I'm a skin cell, I'm able to function, or not. If I don't have enough energy, that doesn't happen. And then the toxins build up. Cell doesn't have enough energy to turn on the pump to get rid of the toxins. Cell damage occurs, and then they turn into zombie cells. These are senescent cells. They stop doing their job because they don't have enough energy, but they're sucking up all your energy that you have left. If we can't detox, then these toxins will get stored in the fat tissues and the liver and the kidneys and the brain. More damage occurs, and that leads to apoptosis. That's cellular death. So, what does the research say about the GHK and mitochondrial function? The GHK copper peptide is a key component of energy production in the mitochondria. It activates and enhances an enzyme called cytochrome C. That's one of the final phases of energy, ATP production, which is our energy, and it enhances oxygenation during exercise. So we're going to talk a little bit about exercise now. So what are the reasons we have to stop doing that third set of 12 on the biceps curl? I run out of energy or I run out of oxygen. So the GHK enhances energy production, and it enhances oxygenation during exercise. Not only that, the GHK chemo attracts, not in like a chemotherapy way, it's like a Pied Piper, leading new capillaries into that muscle that you're trying to increase in size and stamina. It's the GHK copper peptide that starts the process after it gets the signal, your body gets the signal, hey, there's not enough oxygen in here. We ought to put some more capillaries in there to bring in more blood and oxygen. It's the GHK that starts that process. Next topic, why do we age faster? Cognitive decline. It's actually not a cause directly of death, but if someone has cognitive decline, they're more likely to, for example, trip and fall or forget things or take their pills instead of 3 times a day or once a day, they take it 6 times a day, or other types of things that lead to injury or death. So here are a few brain facts. Research shows we lose about at least 9,000 neurons per day, and this decline begins at the age of around 30. Estimates are that we form about 2,000 to 4,500 new neurons per day, depending on our activation. If you do the math, it doesn't look so good. 9,000 minus 2,000 is we have a net loss of 7,000. So it's somewhere between 7,000 to 5,500 that we're lacking unless we do. It depends on what we're doing. Are we learning new things? Are we learning how to dance, learning how to play an instrument, reading, and also our metabolic rate? So I asked, what are you doing to decrease the loss, and what are you doing to increase the growth of new neurons? Well, you'll be happy to know that the GHK copper peptide plays a huge role in the reactivation or the regeneration of the brain and neurons. And so I want to talk briefly about the brain mapping study that was done with the GHK copper peptide. So they used a measurement called coherence. And I've gone over this before, but for those of you who are new on this call or to this, coherence is a measure of the synchronization of the signals between two sites. So it's an expression of how well the right side and the left side of the brain, like the two frontal lobes or the two temporal lobes, are talking to each other. They have to coordinate things. When I look at someone, I have to see facial features. I have to interpret color, different part of the brain, smell, clothing. I have to interpret all of that things. And then my brain has to communicate. Sometimes it's side to side, sometimes it's front to back. And that's a measurement of our coherence. It quantifies the degree of interaction and shared information. So coherence, normal coherence would just be normal, and it's just the right amount of crosstalk. Hypercoherence, that's when they're not functioning in an efficient way and they're all jammed up. It's like a traffic jam and nobody's moving. And interestingly enough, the more hypercoherence we have, the more autistic we are, because we can't function. It takes a long time to process anything. Hypocoherence, where you have poor intersite connection or interaction, and the more you have of this, the more in cognitive decline we are. So hypocoherence is not enough. Well, there was a brain map study done, elevating the GHK copper peptide. Just to orient you, this is looking at the top of the head. The nose would be on the end where it says session 1, 2, and 3. But notice all the red. This is hypercoherence. Brain on fire. I can't think. Squirrel, 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 squirrel. I can't focus. Notice session 2 at 3 weeks and at 6 weeks. It starts to become more even side to side, and you don't even need to know what the colors mean, but it's a much better functioning brain. Here's the next one. This person, a 67-year-old manual therapist specializing in craniosacral massage. Here she's helping everybody else, and her brain is just absolutely on fire. And then it evens out. And it's only 6 weeks, so over a period of a year, you'd see a lot more improvement. And this one as well, brain on fire. And what it did in this study is that if they had hypercoherence, it brought it down closer to normal. If they had hypocoherence, it brought it up closer to normal. But this is the reason. Well, first of all, let's look at what the research says about this, about the GHK copper in the brain. And there's a lot. I've only listed some of them. It is GHK copper peptide that even gets the copper into your blood. It transports it through the blood-brain barrier. For those not familiar with that, it's like a sieve. It's a screen. It keeps big things out, like big bacteria. It keeps it out of your brain so you don't get a bacterial infection. The copper has to be transported into the brain where it's very important and necessary. So that copper we need it to make neurons and synapses and neurotransmitters, and it's GHK. Not only does it transport it into the brain, that it holds on to it until it's needed and then lets it go Here, little fella, here you need to make a new neuron. There you go. It's necessary to make brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. Don't get confused by this, these words that are unfamiliar. When we do something every day for about a minute, the brain says, hey, he's probably going to want to do that again. So let's make some new neurons so he can connect the dots better and do it better and more efficiently. This is what neuroplasticity is all about. If we start learning a new task, our brain makes BDNF and it says, okay, have at it. Make new connections so they can do it better. And if we lose neurons, make new ones. So this is a very important concept right here. It also, if there's an injury, people who have high levels of GHK copper peptide have much less brain edema. A lot of times it's not the injury that causes the damage to the brain, it's the swelling. The GHK has neuroprotective properties and helps prevent cognitive decline. This is from the literature. This isn't something I made up. It has mood stabilizing properties, including anti-anxiety. Also, it beneficially, and this is past tense because this is from a study that was done, beneficially altered the expression of human genes involved in neuron function by 50%. So all those genes that are telling your brain what to do and when to do it, how to do it, they were beneficially altered by 50%. It alleviated, now here's the thing, when I said it's not the injury itself, it's the swelling. So it alleviated, in the study, neuronal apoptosis in intracerebral hemorrhage. What that means is if you have a brain bleed, it alleviated how many cells, neurons actually died when there was an injury, and then has mood stabilizing properties. We already mentioned that. This is why I use them in my clinic, because we treat people with brain issues. This checks a huge box, and everyone who goes to our program gets a 30-day supply of X39. Next topic, stem cell exhaustion. We lose our ability to replace cells over time. Stem cell exhaustion and depletion. So we have reduced stem cell production. We have decreased regenerative capacity. So whole body, not just in the brain that we were talking about. We have an accumulation of senescent stem cells that can contribute to dysfunction and aging. What does that mean? These are those zombie cells. This is what was so astounding to me when I was doing the research on this. Stem cells also become zombie cells. When I first started using these, it'll be 4 years ago in March, end of March, my cells, I was, 66 at the time. My cells, my stem cells, probably a lot of them were zombie stem cells. They were senescent. They go into the state where they're not doing their function. They're just sucking up all my energy. When we don't have normal stem cells or enough of them, we have impaired homing and migration. This was the other thing that was so astounding to me and surprising, is that it's the GHK copper peptide that acts like the Pied Piper and telling stem cells where to go. Chemo attracts them, and chemo, not like chemotherapy. It's a good thing. What does the research say about the role of GHK copper peptide regarding stem cells? Let's take a look. It activates the production of pluripotent stem cells. Those are the cells that can become any cell. You need a new liver cell. Here, I'm going to morph into that. It's like a chameleon, but different in that it can become a different cell rather than just changing colors. It directs stem cells towards damaged tissue. That's what I was alluding to in the last slide. So it basically is managing traffic flow. Stem cells to the left, regular guys to the right. It activates genes associated with stem cell production. So how does it do that? How does it activate a gene? The genes are double helix strand, and the ending of the gene or part of the gene can either be covered up or uncovered. And the GHK copper peptide facilitates that with a process called phosphorylation or acetylation. That's an on and off switch. It's not a mystery. If it needs to turn it off, it does something. If it needs to turn it on, it does something else. Next topic, the number one killer worldwide, cardiovascular disease and stroke. How important is this? It's the number one cause of death globally. A high fibrinogen level, and we're going to talk about that, is the number one predictor of probability of having a stroke. And you are 2.4 times more likely to have a stroke if this is elevated. We have to have some fibrinogen because if we cut ourselves, if we have a bleed, we have to be able to clot and stop the bleeding, or we'll bleed out. So you have to have fibrinogen in your blood. But if it gets too high, the cells become too sticky, and the more cells that stick together, the more likely you are to have a stroke. And so there was a 10-year study done in Sweden, and they found in this 10-year study of men that those who had high fibrinogen level were 2.5 times more likely to have a stroke if it got elevated. And also, regarding cardiovascular disease and stroke, decreased oxygen to the heart muscle causes myocardial infarction. Remember when I talked about how the GHK is like the Pied Piper, leading capillaries, stimulating capillary infiltration into muscles? It's true for the heart too. Why do people have an MI? Well, they say they had a blocked artery. Why didn't my system sense that and then grow some new capillaries into that area that needed more oxygen? I'll let you decide. What does the research say about this? The role of GHK in heart health. It helps keep fibrinogen synthesis levels at normal levels. It influences the gene that's involved in making part of the fibrinogen molecule, and then your body doesn't make too much of it. It increases myostatin gene expression almost 9.5-fold. Myostatin inhibits heart failure. So far we've talked about it inhibits the overproduction of fibrinogen, but it increases myostatin gene expression. So you got less of the bad thing and more of the good thing. The myostatin inhibits heart failure. And it helps blood vessels form to promote for circulation that I talked about. What else? GHK in heart. It helps prevent blood from clotting too much. I was on a conference call with a man a few weeks ago, and he's on blood thinners. And he started using the GHK copper peptide, and his numbers went out. There's a certain measurement that they use. So he actually had to stop using so much blood thinner because his body was starting to do it a little bit more naturally. Now, we don't make any claims on that. I'm not diagnosing, treating. I'm a doctor, but I'm not his or your doctor. But it helps prevent blood from clotting too much. Helps create collagen and elastin, which restores integrity to the blood vessels. So our blood vessels are pumping 100,000 times a day, and they get damaged, and you have to be able to repair them, or what happens? You get an aneurysm. If you don't have the integrity of your vessels, then they get these big bulges in them, and sometimes that's fatal. So it's the GHK that helps restore the integrity to the blood vessel walls by repairing collagen and elastin. Elastin is what makes it flexible. Collagen is the strength. And it helps prevent, this is the GHK, it helps prevent the oxidation of LDL, low density lipoprotein, so it decreases the risk of atherosclerosis. Shoot, everybody ought to be using this. All of our Medicare costs would go down if everybody globally was using this. Well, LifeWave did a study. It was a 6-week organ function study. Without going into great detail, they did all kinds of measurements on the cardiovascular system, beginning and during the test and at 6 weeks. And what they found is that the cardiovascular systems of the participants acted, another way of saying reverse in age, but acted 2 months younger. I did the math way 4 years ago. This I was oddly attracted to this study that I'll explain why, but it's for every day you wear the patch, the cardiovascular system gets a day and a third younger. That's the 2 months to 6 weeks. I did the math. Next topic, cancer, the big C word, #2 killer. And those are growing exponentially globally. It's the #2 killer. But man, I've never seen in my lifetime people who go from healthy to stage 4 in a very short period of time. It's tragic. So what does the research say about that? DHK and copper. Now, again, I'm not making claims regarding cancer. This is what the research, I'm just reporting what's in the research regarding cancer. The DHK copper peptide resets the programmed cellular death cycle in several different types of cancer. So what does that mean? Well, a normal cell gets the message, hey, I got neighbors on the right and left, front and back, up and down, so I don't need to multiply anymore. Cancer cells just keep dividing, and they invade the surrounding tissues and kill it. That's why it's fatal, because it destroys some organ or some vital organ. Well, it's GHK that resets that death cycle. It inhibits, by turning them off with that, what we talked about, inhibits 25 genes that are associated with the predisposition to get cancer. So it turns them off. It helps repair DNA. So we talked earlier about damage to the genes. Well, if we get damage to the genes, they can mutate and turn into cancer cells. Well, it helps repair the DNA so that doesn't happen. It's repaired, and then that cell doesn't die or mutate. The clock is ticking. How do we get the GHK copper peptide? You can get infusions or injections. You can use lotions or creams from a dermatologist or shampoos, or you can wear the X39 phototherapy patch. And I wanted to show this picture because this is a picture of my good friend, Dr. Karlfeld. We used to be in the same clinic. When I started ClearMind, I was actually leasing space inside of his clinic. He does alternative cancer therapy, and he wrote the book. I went out on my own in about a year and a half ago, and have my own separate clinic now. And he has his, and we wrote books unbeknownst to each other. So we got together and took this picture. His is a better way to treat cancer, and mine is how to reverse aging, as you know. But in that conversation, the day we took that picture, he said, I use the GHK copper peptide as part of my cancer treatment protocols. So it's not like, it's a mystery. It's out there. People who do that type of therapy know that it inhibits cancer. So we're talking about the GHK copper peptide. We're talking about the X39 phototherapy patch technology. And here's what, since I wrote the book, it's actually changed my conversations a little bit with people, because when they ask what are the potential benefits, I say any potential benefit of the patch can be determined by what the literature and the studies say about the effect and the actions of the GHK copper peptide. Because there was a study done by LifeWave, by a researcher. LifeWave didn't do it, but it was published in the Internal Medicine Research, Volume 6, Issue 1. The study was a double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial that explored the impact of wearing the X39 non-transdermal photobiomodulation patch over a period of 1 week on the level of the GHK copper peptide in the blood. And this, it was this study that was presented to the U.S. Patent Office in order to receive the patent for the X39 technology. And this is what they did. 60 people were randomized into 2 groups. 1 tube of blood was drawn. More was taken at 24 hours and 7 days. There was a significant increase in the GHK copper peptide compared to the control group. So that was the study. How does it work? Well, what's in it? It's made of organic nanocrystals, salts, sugars, amino acids, stabilized oxygen, and it's formulated to form a special crystal lattice structure that would refract out and reflect back into the person the energy they're already making. And it reactivates our production of our own stem cells. So what actually happens when you put it on the body? Well, to help people understand that, when you go outside, magically you get GHK copper peptide, or excuse me, magically you get UV light. I'm kind of stuck on talking about the GHK. So you go out in the sun, somehow we get vitamin D. Well, I always ask, is it in the air? Is it in the UV light? Where does it come from? Well, we have trillions of nano antennas in our skin, and the frequency of the UV light is interpreted by our body when it excites those nano antennas. It's interpreted as, hey, it's time to make more vitamin D. So we get vitamin D from the excitation of the nano antennas in our skin, interpreted by our body to make more vitamin D. Help you understand. Now I'm stuck here. There we go. Here's how I want you to think about it to help you understand. You go into a jewelry store and you walk up to the diamond cabinet. There's always really bright lights shining on them. And we see colors. The diamonds are clear, most of them, but you see yellow and orange and blue and purple and all of these different colors. Well, the diamonds are refracting or separating out the individual wavelengths of light that are interpreted by our brain, our eyes and our brain as colors. You are the bright light. The patches are the crystals. In 2009, researchers figured out we glow, we give off energy, we give off visible light. It's just not bright enough to be seen by our eyes. You are the power source. It's the X39 is the phototherapy LifeWave. We have the most unique products because it's powered by the human body. The human body is our power source. So we place them on different spots on the body. The research was done on important acupuncture points, and those are the recommended spots. We wear them 12 hours on and 12 hours off, and then we throw the patch away. Why is that? I get that asked a lot. The patch will last about 24 hours, but after about 12, it's not like there's a clock on it, but any light therapy, the body will respond for a certain amount of time, and then it's done. The bucket is full. You can't get more full because I've got everything I need. My laser therapies in my practice are 2 to 6 minutes long. I could let it sit there for an hour and the body wouldn't have any more benefit than it did in 2 minutes because the bucket is full. Now it'll last about 24 hours. So yes, even though LifeWave does not recommend that they're to be used for animals, except for the AccuLife patch. If you have a pet or a plant, put it on that and see what happens. And then we put a new patch on the next day. Drink plenty of water. Also, if you're going to use or you're going to ask your body to make more GHK copper peptide, you need copper. So supplement with copper. And David Schmidt is coming out with a new product that will include that, so you won't have to worry about it once you're taking that. So what does it do? Well, you put the patch on, you get a lot of times rapid pain relief. I've had so many people in the last week, I put this on and they were their chief complaint was pain, and they look at me like I'm a magician. Not everybody has that experience. I did not. It took me about 4.5 months for me to notice anything. Reduced inflammation, supports wound healing, energy vitality, mental clarity, enhanced sports performance, faster recovery from exercise. And that's the other thing about working out. So it helps us make more energy, and then we recover faster from the oxidative damage caused by the exercise, so we can get back in the gym quicker. We can have more energy and get back there, improve skin appearance. Dermatologists know about that. They have for decades. Athletes all over the world are using this. Down at the bottom, the world's strongest man, this professional football player, this bowler, whatever he was doing, but all over the world, they're using them. They were used, our patches were used by our U.S. men's Olympic swim team with Michael Phelps in the, excuse me, the Olympics in 2004. That's why they got all their best times. They were accused of doping, and the World USA Doping Agency says, nope, no doping, they're not transdermal. At the next Olympics, there were over 300 athletes using them. David Beckham, one of the most famous soccer players in the world, again, athletes all over the world. This is a really, this slide means a lot to me personally, because I set my intention years ago that I wanted to increase my circle of influence for good globally. Interesting, that was when I was in chiropractic practice, and it really couldn't happen there. So the things that happened to my family and to me, a suicide, a murder, and a bone infection, shifted me off of that course so that I could increase that ripple effect globally. But I showed this in one of the energy healing conferences in St. George, Utah, 2 or 3 years ago. And a year and a half later, oh, here's the story. He got his fingertip cut off. The surgeon refused to sew the tip back on because he said it's going to die. There's no capillary growth or connection. It won't have any oxygen, can't bring any nutrients, so it'll die. The doctor took full responsibility, said, I have the stem cell activation patch. I'll take full responsibility. If you have to do another surgery, I'm good. Surgeon sewed it up. Guess what? It died. This is the black of necrosis. But remember, the GHK, chemo attracts capillary growth into that dead tissue. The boy's finger was saved, and you can barely see a little indentation on this fingernail right there. But he kept the fingernail. A year and a half later, somebody reached out to me. They said the cousin of a friend of mine on Facebook has a little boy, had his fingertip cut off. The surgeon, 4 different surgeons, refused to sew it on. And with my help, she reached out to them. And now yet another little boy still has his fingertip. And so that ripple effect, because I said yes to the patch, at least 2 boys that I know of still have their fingertips. So that's really rewarding. Skin effects. Look at this age spot right here, how much that's fade. This guy, this was over a period of 2 years. He's just total transformation of his skin right through there. Up in here as well. And then these age spots. LifeWave make claims about that. No, that's in the research. This is actually a friend of mine. He had basal cell carcinoma, but remarkably, this age spot really faded right here. You can hardly even tell where that was. Interesting story on that. He moved to Arizona, and gosh, like 2 years later, somebody sent me a text, said, hey, they're talking about you on this video. And I had started him on the X39, but he was talking about them with his cardiologist. That was a former friend and patient of mine. Long-term results, a lot of long-term results. You get resetting of those genes. It's actually 4,190. I would say brain becomes more balanced, not totally balanced. That would be a bold claim. But these other things happen over long periods of time. I say to people all the time, you don't know where the regeneration is occurring. You have something that's measurable, like pain. It's easy to tell if it goes away. But some of us, that I'm going to explain in a second, when it comes back to this cardiovascular study, this organ function study is very, I said I was oddly attracted to it initially, and for a good reason, because that's what was going on with me. I was about to have a knee replacement. Well, first of all, right bundle branch block, for those of you who don't know, it has to do with conductivity to the right ventricle. And on PubMed, if you have, it says if you have an RBBB, it's associated with an increased risk of all-cause mortality. And if you do have an acute myocardial infarction, you usually don't make it. Right conductivity, electrical conductivity, the right ventricle, this pumps blood out to the lung so it can get oxygen and come back. So if you don't do that well, you can't keep up with the blood coming back to your heart. That's why anything you have could get worse. Here's my timeline. I knew I had PVCs when I was in high school. I didn't know what they were. I had this fluttery heart. I was a long distance runner, and I loved to run because I didn't get them at rest. They were only when I'm only at rest I would get these PVCs. In April of 2020, I started using the X39. I placed one on the back of the neck, and I had this idea because I am a man and more is always better. I placed another one over my heart. I found out later from David Schmidt. He said, yes, you do get about a 20% bump in the production of the GHK. It's not double, but it's about 20%. In August of 2020, so I started using the patches off April 2020. In August, the PVCs changed. They went to something they'd never done before, where they got really rhythmic, and it was every fifth beat for a couple of weeks, day and night. I mean, if your heart is skipping a beat, stopping basically every 5 seconds for a second, that's a substantial decrease in your oxygen level. And I was gasping in the night because I felt like I couldn't breathe. So I had a knee replacement surgery coming up because my knee was really bad. I was a crazy skier and tore my cartilage, broke my leg way back in 1973. So anyway, I said, I got to go see the cardiologist. And I'm so glad I went and did this, because that's when I found out I had a right bundle branch block. So I didn't know I had it until August of 2020. 2 weeks later, the PVCs were gone. And this is the results of the first test. It says compatible with a right RBBB sinus rhythm with a right bundle branch block. That's my first one. About a year and a half later, I had my second one. And I'm going to zoom in right down here. Right bundle branch block is no longer present, baby. So how huge is that, do you think, for me, my family, my kids, my grandkids, that grandpa or husband or dad is going to be a lot, around a lot longer? And then I got this. This is like, oh, happy day, singing the happy dance. My doctor reviewed the test and everything was normal. So what are we? I mean, even if it's not me, if it's anybody, what a remarkable thing to have this little light therapy patch that's powered by energy I was already making, reflected back into me. It activates all these pathways and helps me be a better human. And that's one of my goals. One of my goals in life, this was about a year before I started using the patches, and this was taken a couple of weeks ago. My hair was really gray and basically really coarse, and it totally changed. My hair turned from brown, from back to front, brown to back to front. That's how it started. In fact, a friend had to tell me about it. I didn't realize it was happening. I've used this before, but this little slide about the Wizard of Oz, and this is what one of my take-home messages to you today is: you've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself. The power that powers the patch is already in you. You are not at the whim of external forces. You are the force. When I talked about goals, and I hope you join me in this goal of helping people get out of the disease management dangerous system that we have currently and get into my body because I am activating these different pathways, specifically with the X39, the GHK copper peptide, my body is a better body. I'm a better human. I am more productive into my later years of life because my body did not go into this slow decline into frailty and disability. Now I'm vital. I'm at that I've robust. I've got it going on into my latter years rather than people have to take care of me. Which brings me to that ripple effect. If you have ever had the desire to increase your circle of influence for good globally, this is it, baby. You can start a ripple effect that goes around and around the world by saying yes to the patch or recommitting, if you've already said yes to the patch, to open up your voice and talk to people and tell them the good news that you don't have to be part of this disease management system that we have, that you can get out and go a different direction. When you, and this was my thought when I first started, I said, man, if I help my family, then I can help my community, then that's my city, that's my state, that's the country, and then it's the world. People have less anxiety. They don't fight as much. They're not so mad, in traffic. They think better. They're more productive. They have better income, and on and on and on. So I want to challenge you to make that commitment to start a ripple effect that goes around the world. Figured out what I want to be when I get older, and that's younger. And I really want to thank everybody for tuning in today.